He kōna I purangi tēnei nā te reo irirangi o Aotearoa.
No mai, whakarongo mai ki te Aotai whenua. Welcome to Country Life. I'm Sally Round.
Lovely to have your company. Thanks for joining us. Ko Janina Schwaniga aho. Today, I catch up with a Gisborne flower grower, juggling her floristry business and growing 2 sprouts of her own.
Cosmo gets an update from a farmer who several years ago switched to a more holistic approach to farming.
And we're back at the river in a tent with some excited tamariki for the final part in our series with Urua Mahanga Farm Foundation.
But first to a roundup of what's been making headlines on our rural news desk this week. A free trade dairy dispute between New Zealand and Canada has intensified. Last year, New Zealand won a case under the CPTPP, which found Canada was breaching the agreement by blocking dairy exporters' access to the Canadian market. However, Canada hasn't rectified the issue, and last week the New Zealand government escalated talks, which triggered compulsory negotiations. Canada's Minister Lawrence Macaulay says his government will continue to stand up for its dairy industry and farmers. He says New Zealand continues to be an important, like-minded partner for Canada, so it'll engage in the process in good faith.
A Kiwi invention is proving successful with oyster growers overseas. An automated way of farming and breeding oysters spawned from the Marlborough Sounds is increasing the quality and quantity of the much sought-after molluscs around the world. Here's Aaron Pannell, who developed Flip Farms with his wife Debbie 13 years ago.
We came up with a new system where we use a rigid plastic basket. On one side of that basket we attach a blow-moulded float, and on the other side we attach what we call an axle, which is like a tube that a rope is threaded through. So you end up with this long line of baskets all lined up together, and they can rotate around the axle, around the rope. And this means that we can flip them over onto their back, onto the float, which elevates the basket out of the water, and then the oysters in the basket can dry out, and that's a fantastic way to control the biofouling.
And trials of alternative grass species which are more resilient to a warming climate are going well. Ag Research has just presented its initial findings to farmers. Senior scientist Catherine Tozer has been trialling 8 different species like perennial ryegrass, cocksfoot and pasture brome over the past year.
Some things that are coming out that are really good is the microlena, which is a New Zealand native species, and they've done a little bit of plant breeding with it. So it's more productive and a higher nutritive value than the one that just grows on dry, shady hillsides here in New Zealand.
Speaking of a warming climate, the country's greenhouse gas emissions have risen, but the rural sector's not to blame. Yes, data from Statistics New Zealand shows emissions rose 1.1% during the June quarter due to the electricity, gas, water and waste service industries. The largest reduction came from manufacturing, followed by agriculture, forestry and fishing, whose greenhouse gas emissions dropped 0.6%. To some news from the horticulture industry now, and a new report out from New Zealand Apples and Pears has some mixed news for growers. The report found the sector contributes nearly $2 billion in total revenue to the New Zealand economy. But Apples and Pears Chief Executive Karen Morris says it's disappointing that those producing the goods aren't making better returns, and they're looking at ways to turn that around.
Part of it is looking at the settings that we have within New Zealand, and whether that be labour capital compliance, market access, terms of trade, environmental regulations. It's just looking at how we do things smarter going forward.
Meanwhile, a Hawke's Bay cherry orchard has had 3,000 trees ripped out due to damage from last year's Cyclone Gabrielle. Cherry Gold Orchard near Napier suffered extensive flooding last year, and there were hopes the trees would bounce back. But 19 months on, owner Sarah Findlay says the trees have only got worse.
This year will be the first year we don't have them, and it's going to be very weird.
Uncharted territory.
Yeah, there's no panic at Christmas, and everybody's checking the weather forecast every 5 minutes.
And you have some news from the mushroom sector, Janina.
2 decades ago, New Zealand had 13 commercial mushroom farms. Now there are only 3, and Australia's dropped from 100 to now just 42. Australasian mushroom growers gathered in Auckland this week to discuss the issue for the shrinking sector. Here's conference chairman Jeff Martin.
All mushrooms these days are actually grown indoors. It's very, very sophisticated these days. Obviously, technology is driving change, but both farms on either side of the Tasman they face the same issues. Raw material input costs, energy costs, issues with labour for picking, getting people to actually work in our industry. And of course, the main one is getting a good farm gate return for the mushrooms.
The Ministry for Primary Industries has pushed out the opening date for a new quarantine facility for imported plant material. The $17.4 million facility was finished in February and due to open last month, but Biosecurity New Zealand says it now won't open until next year. That's because it's testing equipment like irrigation, grow lights and misting and fogging machines. When open, it will nearly double the quarantine capacity at the Plant Health and Environment Laboratory in Auckland's Mount Albert. And just lastly, the supreme winner of this year's Food Awards has been announced, and it's not what you might expect. Yes, butter. A butter spread made by Feliz Whole Foods hasn't been named the top winner, but dairy farmers can move over. There's not an udder in sight as it's made from avocado oil. Aline Fonseca of Feliz Whole Foods says it's been growing in popularity.
So it does everything that butter does. It cooks, it bakes, it melts really nicely. It has a higher smoke point, so you can fry your food in it.
And that's the rural news for this week.
This is Country Life on RNZ National 101 FM.
5 years ago, Country Life was at John Legg's dairy farm near the shores of Te Waihora, Lake Ellesmere in Canterbury. Back then, John was making some big changes to the way he was farming. Earlier this week, Cosmo Kentish Barnes went back to the farm to find out how things are going.
Now, John, we've driven onto one of your paddocks and you've got a herd of cows here?
Yeah, so this year we've just split our herd into 2 and 3 year olds are in one group, and then just all the rest mixed age. So over 3-year-old cows are in the other herd. Yeah, they're just moving on to a new shift now through the halter system. So we're doing around 6 shifts a day.
When I was here 5 years ago, you did not have that halter system on the farm.
No, this is our second season with it, and it's been awesome. Just in terms of saving a lot of time. Like if we were to do what we're doing with the multiple shifts through manpower, I just never would be able to achieve that. But just through the app, I can draw a break on my phone and just keep the cows moving onto fresh pasture throughout the day.
For our listeners who don't understand how halter works, could you explain it?
So halter is a collar that does virtual fencing. So instead of having a semi-permanent hot wire up, they've learnt to be navigated through the collars through sound and vibration. And we're sitting in a 6-hectare paddock at the moment with 130 odd cows here. So we're at the very back end of this paddock, and now I can hold them right down in this wee section and really get that pressure on this pasture.
It's amazing how you can hold them down here with your mobile phone.
Yeah, cows are real smart. Like, you can just draw a wee dog leg right down the fence line and keep them off, 90% of the paddock.
And they'd work it out pretty quick.
They work it out, yeah.
There's a good cover of mixed pastures here in the paddock.
Yeah. I think last time you were here, we were putting in mixed species, so our plantain, chicory, lucerne, different white clovers, sub-clovers, and then different varieties of grasses too. That hasn't changed too much.
Well, let's get out and have a look. Five years ago, you were in the middle of converting to regenerative farming. Is that journey continuing?
Yeah, it's definitely still we're just continuing on. Always looking for ways to improve and just be more efficient. We sort of sit between, 8 and 20 units of N, like in a season. And when you think about national caps at 190 units, so we're well down on the national cap. I don't know what the average is now, but it was sitting up around 240 or something. That was before they brought in that cap, but really pleased with how the pastures are going.
So you're still needing to use synthetic fertilisers?
Yeah, like we still use, like in the spring we'll do around, like you still need nitrogen in the system because it's a vital part, but you just don't want to become reliant on it. and make sure that you've got your species like we can see here, your red clovers and
lots of
white
clover.
clover and that's fixing that nitrogen for you.
Yes. And when I was here last, you were using quite a bit of poultry fertiliser, which was working well.
Yeah, we used pole fert. I've gone away from it. I don't even really know why. We just sort of adjust, and probably I think what's changed is maybe 2 or 3 years ago we got a slurry tanker, a 10,000 litre slurry tanker. So at that stage we only had a selective area where we could spread effluent on through the travelling irrigator. But now I've opened the whole farm up pretty much, because we're consented to spread effluent on the whole farm, and with the slurry tanker we can do that. So it substituted the need for pole fert, and we put in an agitator in our slurry tanker too. So I can mix in humates and fish hydrolysate into the effluent and get that onto the paddocks at the same time, which has been awesome.
And has the soil changed over the past few years?
I think just looking at our soil test results, a massive difference has been the potassium levels. Like, we always struggle with potassium, which is quite an expensive nutrient if you're applying that. But I think with the stock density and multiple shifts, it's just shifted that potassium to a level where we don't have to apply it anymore. So yeah,
that's a real positive.
Yeah, our biggest work on is just phosphorus, and we're seeing a few issues with the cows in terms of phosphorus deficiencies, which I was just talking to Dad about this morning. There's phosphorus in the ground, but it's not being made available to the plant for some reason. So
can you remedy that through regenerative farming techniques?
Yeah, and I think it's and like I have these discussions with our soil consultant Chantel, and I think I don't really want to go too deep into it because I don't know if I'll get it quite right, but I do know, looking at the amount of phosphorus that's in our soils through the reserves, it is there. It's just a matter of like trying to tap into it and make it available. So that's there's plant species that make it available, but I think calcium's a big driver in that, opening up your soils and then getting your microbes firing so that making it available, which we haven't achieved yet. So we're having to feed a phosphorus supplement in the shed so the cows are happy.
So that's something that you plan to work on?
Yeah, definitely. Like, I'd love to see it that they're getting everything they need through the pasture, but as great as the pasture looks at the moment, there's obviously something lacking that's not hitting their requirements.
I also remember you saying that you were hoping to stop having to use irrigation on the farm.
Yeah, like that's still definitely that's a goal of ours. I mean, last year we probably had our longest irrigation season I can certainly think of, but it was real dry. So yeah, I still fully believe that when you get that organic matter in your soils and increase your organic matter, it's going to hold and manage to retain moisture for longer, and you've got your species in your pastures that can tap a bit deeper. So yeah, I still believe that we're heading in that direction.
And milk production-wise, are levels still up compared to when you were farming conventionally?
Yeah, I don't know if we're ever farming conventionally. Like, there's still, I've learned so much since probably the last 5 years. Like, I know there's areas to improve. Like if you look at it and compare our farm to what you would probably call a conventional farm, our stocking rate's nowhere near what other farms are at. But I try to just focus on our herd and are we improving? And I know we are improving. Like, empty rates are at a standard now where it's probably a bit more acceptable. I think we used to sit up around that 20% mark, and we're down to about 12% empty rates, which is, that just improves your efficiency. It means you can cull cows that aren't producing up to a standard that you need from your cows. But I think even back then we were seeing improvements, but it's just like our cell count this year, I think, is average 60, which is pretty awesome. I think we've treated maybe 2 cows this whole spring.
What do you mean by cell count?
Cell count is your somatic cell count. So all cows have a different somatic cell count. You want to keep it under around 150. That's normally the standard. You get graded on your milk, so if you can get it under 150, you get paid a higher premium.
Yep.
This is through Fonterra. So yeah, somatic cell count is just white blood cells in the milk, and we're sitting at 60. So animal health is awesome.
The cows are looking very contented, aren't they?
Yeah.
They've been milked this morning too, haven't
Yeah,
they?
they've been milked. So they are due to be milked again in a couple of hours' time.
Yeah, they're filling up pretty quick.
Yeah, production's up. I think we did record production the other day. I'm trying to hit 5,000 litres per day this year, which I don't think we've ever done before, and we hit 4.9. Yeah.
What's that roughly for one of these Ayrshire cows?
Per cow?
Yeah.
Oh, look, my maths. 24 litres.
24 litres
24 litres
per
a
cow
day.
per day.
Per day, yeah.
That's pretty good, isn't it? And these aren't huge cows.
No, they're not. I think Ayrshires are they're probably between a Holstein Friesian and a Jersey in terms of size. I think that their average weight is around 480.
And for our listeners who didn't hear the previous story I recorded with you, you're a fourth generation farmer here, and your family have been breeding Ayrshires for 100 years.
Yeah, I tried to do a little bit of research on that to find out when the actual day was that they bought the farm, but it'll be like this year or next year is 100 years. It's a little bit blurred because I think they leased the farm for a few years before they purchased it. But yeah, we're a full Ayrshire stud, 100%.
As we're talking, they are gradually moving all the way around us.
They're getting quite close, eh?
Yeah. So it sounds like your regenerative farming system is working well.
Yep, yeah, I'm real happy with where we're sitting. I think Holder's been big for us in terms of just making it manageable for myself.
Do you have any staff?
No, like there's me and Dad. Dad does the calf rearing. He's just starting to get into the shed now as we started mating. We started mating a couple of days ago, so I'm actually on my first season of DIY, so I'm doing the inseminating this year. And then, yeah, my brother, he helps out where we need. Like he's cutting a little bit of baleage, 4 hectares just next door, so he comes over and helps out when he can.
I think we went into the paddock that he's in at the moment last time I was here to look at the native plantings you've been doing, because that paddock borders Harts Creek.
Yeah, well that's Birdling's Brook, which feeds into Harts Creek. And I can't remember whether they'd done all that Fonterra and Naitahu planting at that stage.
You were still doing some of it, I think.
Yeah, so that's all been planted up now, right down to the end of the Blind Road, or Legs Road is. And also all the other side's been planted up too.
It looks like it's grown heaps as well.
Yeah, it's really come away quite a bit. The Ellesmere Sustainable Ag Group did quite a bit of work, and through the Tanaku project, all the other sides all been planted up, and yeah, it's looking real good, real good.
Are you finding that your farming system here aligns well with Environment Canterbury's farm environment plans?
Yep, like we're due for another audit actually at the moment, but in our last audit on our farm environmental plan we got an A. So yeah, I'd say it lines up with ECAN and what they're wanting to see, I'd imagine.
Yeah, so that takes that pressure off.
Yeah, like I don't know if we explained that last time, but you get your farm environmental plan audited, and if you get certain grade. So depending on your grade depends on when your next audit is.
Yep, that's right.
So with an A, I think it's three years before you need to get audited again. So yeah, there's a bit of pressure, like mentally, making sure you've got everything ticked in, all your boxes ticked in that.
Are you still enjoying farming?
Yes. But you've got, it's like anything, you have your days. Definitely have days when you're tired and you wonder what you're doing, but I enjoy the cow side of it, probably more so than I probably did last time you were talking to me. The breeding side of it is quite fascinating, getting to know the cows and just see the cows improve and the herd improve in terms of their type and their production. It's quite rewarding.
Dairy farmer John Legg with his cows. He was talking to Cosmo on his farm near Te Waihoara, Lake Ellesmere.
Like many, I've often fantasised about having a flower farm of my own, plenty of fresh-cut blooms to play with, and a garden to potter in. The reality is not quite as glamorous as it might seem, though, as our next guest will tell you. From her dining room table at home, just south of Gisborne, Kate Bryant makes beautiful bouquets from blooms she's grown herself.
So at the moment, these have been in the chiller for a few days to keep them from going over. It basically stops them from, what's a flower term? Ripening, I guess.
Going to bloom.
Yeah, going over bloom. So I'm just cutting them on an angle, and it'll help encourage them to soak up some more water before I arrange them.
And so do you just kind of start by placing your individual flowers that you know are going to form the bouquet into their own buckets?
Yeah, so at the moment I'm doing, say, 4 bouquets. I'm going to do them all the same. These are going to go to my retail stand at Makaraka Veggies. So it's easy to just go, right, I want 1 of these, 3 of those, 2 of those. I know they're all going to be the same, so I can price them the same. And then, slowly put them together. Well, I'm getting faster.
Though it may look like fun, being a rural florist and running her own flower farm is like any other job in the growing world, often challenging.
So with flower growing, it's not this glamorous, thing that I don't portray it so much, but a lot of the sort of flower grower influencers do, especially overseas, they're prancing through fields with their beautiful curled hair and their, floaty dresses. The reality is not that. We are farming. I'm even dressed up nicer today than I normally am. I'm normally in ripped jeans.
Kneeling down in mud.
Hunting and fishing jersey. The jeans are ripped because my knees are always on the ground. I'd never get my fingernails done.
Yeah.
They're cut short because they're always full of dirt.
As you say, it's like farming.
Yeah, which I love. It's my favourite part is actually growing the flowers. The playing with pretty flowers, aka making the bouquets, is probably actually only 10% of the actual work. See, here's Emily coming to unhelp me. What are you going to do?
For Kate, running her own business, The Rural Florist, helps give her the flexibility to look after her young family.
What's that one?
It still takes a village, though.
So Emily will be 2 in October and George is nearly 4. Emily's with me full time and George is at daycare. They're actually named my little unhelpers. Emily's often around my feet and I have a black bin that I put all this greenery rubbish into, and she'll just stand there and pull it all back out and out and out. So I've got my drop sheet, but it always ends up on the carpet. But they love being outside. It's a huge part of my joy in doing this is that I can do a lot of it with them in the garden. George has got a little hand-me-down tractor gator thing that he drives around in. Just on Sunday, he just randomly decided the sun was out. He went and picked up all my straggler dahlia tubers, put them on the back of his little tractor and then drove off. And then he went and found a rake, put that on the back and then just started raking randomly, like not helpful at all, but he's enjoying it and I'm praising him because,
One day it could be really helpful, yeah. I suppose that's part of the appeal for something like this, where it gives you a little bit of flexibility to work around family and other kind of things going on.
Yes, yeah, and when I get a little bit overwhelmed with mum life, I might just shut the website down and then just focus on keeping the Makaraka, the retail stand going, which is a lot less pressure.
It's a lovely creative kind of process as well, isn't it, I suppose? So do you feel it's kind of using different skills from what you were experiencing day to day in the horticulture sector?
Yes, so with my job, I was spending a lot of time out in orchards, but a lot of it was office work or travelling on the road, and I just wanted to get my hands dirty again. And I don't know, it's like almost like a sense of my childhood again, where I'm doing something that I want to do, I'm having fun doing it, my children are having fun doing it, and I couldn't really think of anything else I'd rather be doing.
Kate's always had a green thumb, having started out in the horticulture sector first. Designing floral bouquets was something she did for fun, for friends and family. But she soon learned it could be the key to a more flexible career path.
So I had a background, I went to Lincoln University and did commerce and agriculture and had a minor in soil and plant science, and then spent the summer between university and work in my husband's kiwi fruit nursery, so learning how to grow from cuttings and seed from scratch. And then everything else has been self-taught and I guess a element of winging it.
Same with the putting together the bouquets and...
Yes, yeah, so lots of, I did an online course, lots of YouTube. My mother-in-law is a florist as well, so I spend lots of time with her. And yeah, practice makes perfect. I just look at my original bouquets and just laugh. When I had George, I didn't think I was going to put my career on hold for long. I thought, I'll do the 6 months, 1 year, and then I'll get straight back into it. And it's not until you become a mum that you realise that it's not as simple as what you thought when you didn't have a baby. And then contemplated going back to my career, and then realised I'd have to put George in daycare to be able to give my career give it a good go. And I wasn't ready to do that, so I had already developed a really big garden at our old house from scratch and had grown most of that from seeds and cuttings. Mum was a great gardener, so was my grandma. I studied agriculture at university, so I was always interested in how things grow and loved just every time we'd go out for dinner or someone's birthday, I'd make a bunch of flowers and you just see the joy in their faces and everyone feels great. So I thought, well, there was a gap in the market that I could produce flowers for flower subscriptions and also our local veggie shop because there weren't any flowers on the side of town. Just thought I'd give it a go, and best case scenario it works, and worst case scenario I've got lots of flowers to give to people. And so yeah, it worked. George had lots of fun. He did end up going to daycare because I realised it got bigger than I originally anticipated, a lot sooner than I thought it was going to, and I've just continued that juggle ever since. But yeah, we just have so much fun.
She grows many of the flowers herself in various garden beds and a greenhouse at home near the orchard where her husband works. Like any growing business, there's a rhythm to the seasons.
How many bouquets would you make in a day, roughly?
In the peak of summer, probably 10 a day. So what's that, maybe 50 to 60 a week. And at this time of the year, purposely slow because I've got so much background work that I have to do with the flower field, basically farming. So in the winter I have to choose between farming and making flower arrangements, which I have to buy the flowers in for, which is low margin. So I might only make 10 to 20 a week. I grow a lot of flowers for drying as well, and I hang them up in our shed. And so if I'm feeling like I'm a bit overwhelmed with everything that's going on in the flower field or just mum life admin, I will make up dried flower bouquets and put them in the stand. And then because they last years, I don't have to worry about the perishability and buying flowers and that might go to waste. A lot of my planning over the last year has been how to get flower varieties that can flower in the winter to bridge that gap between autumn and spring. So there's usually about a 3-month gap where I'm having to buy in a lot of flowers to supplement what I'm doing, but pretty much all of the foliage is grown here or at our old property. I've got huge magnolia hedges which I can still have access to, and pick that and that bulks them out a bit. But all of these flowers are long lasting, but these flowers in here are mine. So I've got anemones which are just starting. They're in my little hothouse. And so basically from now on I'll have more and more of my own flowers again.
Kate shares her tips for which flowers she likes to work with and why.
So in the summer it's definitely a mix of what focal flowers I have, so dahlias and zinnias. With the dahlia varieties, they aren't the best phase life, so I'm trying to find the dahlia varieties that will last. So you've got like the smaller pom-pom ball varieties will last a lot longer than the big flouncy dinner plates, which look really beautiful in a garden, but they might only last 2 days in a vase. So trying to strike a balance between what's pretty and what lasts long, and then trying to grow a mix of flowers for bouquet making for retail and then also events. So weddings are very busy in the summer, although I tend to shy away from them a little bit now that I've got young children. Trying to commit to something 1 year in advance, I don't know what I'm going to be doing in a year's time. But I've got amazing family support, and Blake, my husband, is really supportive as well. So if I am tied up with a wedding, I can usually bribe someone to look after the children so I can go and get it done. In the winter, my bouquet making skill is different to the summer. So in the summer it's all flowers, it's in abundance. How many flowers can I pack into a bouquet? It doesn't matter because I'm growing them all on site. If I run out I go and pick more. In the winter it's definitely a lot more strategic these flowers have cost me to buy in, so I can measure, how much does this bouquet cost me to put together? What do I need to price it at to make it worth my while?
Kate shares some tips on how you, too, can make a beautiful bouquet.
A mixture of this sort of colour palette is very popular, and all of these varieties are long-lasting. So we're talking proteas, gerbras, chrysanthemums, so these will last at least 1, if not 2 weeks if they're looked after properly. So people are getting value for money, and then also from my end, I'm not worrying about dealing with a highly perishable flower variety. Yeah, because I sort of came out of the fruit industry, which is perishable, and then decided, to really challenge myself and go into one of the highest perishable products you can get, which is fresh flowers.
Is, the growing side of things, and the usual things that come with farming and growing, weather uncertainty, does that make it extra challenging for you?
Yes, it does, because flowers are so much more vulnerable to weather events. So delicate. A raindrop can damage a petal, and then that goes to waste, or it will rot a lot quicker. Also, once a flower is ready, it's ready. It's not like a mandarin or an apple or a kiwi fruit that can sit there for another week or 2. When that flower is ready, if you don't pick it within 48 hours, it goes to waste.
So is it kind of, once you've got the main structure, you keep kind of infilling a little bit and fleshing it out?
Yeah, and this is taking me way longer than I usually would, because I'm
explaining it too. Having to think through many things,
So normally I have my key focal flowers that I know, I want 1 protea, 1 lily, and then I'll have my other sort of filler flowers to the side where it's more of a, there might be 4, there might be 5, it just depends on how the bouquet is coming together and whether they all look sort of similar. Some might have a couple more than others, but as long as they're sort of the same shape and style.
That was Kate Bryant of the Rural Florist in Gisborne, and her little unhelper, 2-year-old daughter Emily. You can find more tips about working with flowers, including photos of the bouquets Kate was making, on our website, rnz.co.nz/countrylife.
My name is Woodsy. I'm the maker of Woodsy Rockers. I'm from Taranaki. You are listening to Country Life on RNZ National.
Now on Country Life, part 3 of a series on a project happening at the very bottom of the North Island. Last time, schoolchildren were planting trees in remnant podocarp forest bordering the Ruamahanga River. And before that, they were on the riverbank, learning about flow and fish.
Yay! This is going to be fun. I can't wait to go in the tent!
We're back at Ruamahanga Farm, and this time, instead of hands in the soil or the water, it's hands on pen and paper.
This is my second time being at this farm. How much times have you been? Oh my god, this is so hard. Mum said these ones give you wishes.
You've got a dandelion there.
Yeah, I'm just going to do it with my hands. It's hard.
What are you looking forward to today?
I'm doing fun stuff, writing. Sometimes I like doing maths.
Do you like writing?
Yes.
Got any ideas what you'll be writing about today?
Probably some sheep, the river, and the trees, all the grass, the frost, the trees that we have planted. And I found this physical what mostly we'll be doing.
You've got a feather there.
A physical. You dip it in ink and then you write with it.
Let's go ahead.
I'm going to be working also about farm.
We're just walking across the farm now. The children are all around me and we are scrambling towards the gate here, and we can see this bell tent in the distance. Now, bell tent it's a sort of pyramidal shaped tent, canvas set among the trees, and this is going to be the outdoor classroom for the day. You looking forward to it?
Yes.
We'll join the kids in the bell tent later, but first to the day before, when they're among the bulrushes and birdlife on the edge of Lake Wairarapa, further down the valley.
Thank you. Do any of you have any questions?
It's another outdoor lesson, learning about the moana and some of its inhabitants, with Maddie Glover from the charity Mountains to Sea Wellington.
Did anybody try and count how old these ones are? Did you guys? Yeah? How old do you think they were? So we took the kids down to the very edge of the lake where the Upurua spillway comes into the moana, and we collected a handful of kakehi, which are freshwater mussels, so that the kids could have a look at the condition and age them, and we could talk about the migratory patterns. So our freshwater kakehi are really connected to our whitebait species, and they use them to migrate up and down the rivers. So when the babies come out into the water column, they'll hitchhike onto our fish and go up into the rivers to
What's
find
the population looking like?
So we know from a really incredible 10-year citizen science project that the population in the lake is not looking great. We can't really seem to find juveniles at this stage in the 10 years across the 2 sites that have been looked at. So there's some concerns. We know that the lake is in really poor quality. It's not got good flow, especially because of the gates and the diversion. And there's a lot of nutrients in it that aren't getting flushed out, as well as the sediment build-up. So all of these things put a lot of pressure onto our kakehi. And then there's also declining fish populations, so they don't have their little relationship working anymore.
What were you teaching the kids today down there?
Today,
apart from, were you sort of expressing the sort of declining population part of things, or?
We didn't talk too much about the declining population, more just around the importance of how what we do on the land affects our waterways, and how all of our waterways and everything that lives in them are really connected. So if we want to protect something, we have to look after everything that's connected to that. We can't just look at one tiny little aspect.
And these year 3 and 4s, how old are they, 8 and 9-year-olds?
Yeah.
They're going to be doing a writing exercise tomorrow based off this.
Yeah.
What did you put into your talk today that might inspire them?
Well, I'm hoping that a lot of these kids come from farms, and I'm hoping that they're going to go back and have a look at the waterways flowing through their properties and see if they can find kakehi, and maybe they'll come back tomorrow and talk about in their stories about how there's a little piece of the lake living on their property. One of the kids did mention that he's found lots of kakehi in his farm drain before, so we don't know what will come out, but we're excited to see it.
Right, pull the circle ring through.
I think what Jane and Rod have come up with here is such an impressive project, in part because of the way that it's connecting kids really deeply to the environment through all of the, they've got planting and science and writing and art coming up as well, but it also gives every single kid a chance at something that they're good at. Not every kid loves being outside, but they're a good writer, or some people don't like numbers, but, they can run up and down a stop bank and collect bugs all day. So it gives every kid a different chance to connect to the environment and find the way that they can try and do better in future generations.
And the writing part, the literary part specifically, how do you think that connects them with the environment?
I think it puts them a little bit more into that reflective space. It can be a little bit chaotic when we take them out into the environment, so to then come into that calm space with Jane and Rod and sit down and reflect and put words to what they're thinking when they were outside is really powerful.
These field trips are part of Te Reo o Te Wai, which is a 6-month project set up by the Ruamahanga Farm Foundation and run by Jane Ridderford and her husband Rod Sugden, who Maddie mentioned earlier. The project combines storytelling, hands-on freshwater science, and native planting along the river and the wetlands. The nature, conservation and educational element are not too different from Jane's earlier work in inner-city London. We're back on the farm, where the children, alongside the river, will be letting their imagination flow. And that's where the bell tent comes in.
Gumboots off here, and then take your mat and we'll sit inside.
Okay.
But can we do it in small groups and slowly? Shh, wait. I'll open up. And we'll just go 5 at a time.
I'll go first.
Okay.
I'll go second.
I'll put my hand on your head and you can go in, okay? I think it creates a really contained, cosy space and for creativity.
We could fit like 18 people in here since it's so big on the inside compared to it's tiny on the outside.
I think it helps them kind of leave all the rest of the world behind. We worked a lot in our gardens in the middle of London, in the middle of all the glass, shiny, high-rise buildings. We had tents and yurts, and it sort of, I think it helps people shift gear and step into another way, and perhaps more imaginative way of being.
Here's warm because if we move back, the sun's shining down. Because you can actually move around. Put your feet here.
After all the excitement, they settle down, weaving in their recent learning into their own stories.
Giant cockapoo, yes. It's always unknown, you know. I always begin and go, oh my God, is this too abstract? How do we get there? Is it asking too much? And it's a balance between kind of structure and not structure. And what's this one? Yeah, and what's this one?
Water climbing cockapoo?
It's isn't it? It's not there's Inanga, which is all the white bait. The climbing one is called Koado.
Yeah,
Koado.
Giant cockapoo?
Yeah.
What about yesterday when we were with Cara and Maddie? What were the little things we got to feel in the water?
Freshwater.
Yeah.
Freshwater mussels.
Yeah, and what was the te reo name?
I forgot.
It's sounds a bit like the bird, but it starts with K.
Kakahi.
Well done, Kakahi. A lot of people wouldn't know that. So, Kakahi.
Do you remember what that did too? What were the...
It filtered the water.
Yeah, that is a kind of really good scientific fact. It filtered the water, and does anyone remember how much it filtered an hour? 1 litre an hour. So that's a kind of did you know fact. Yeah, so we'll start together. And yeah, well done, that's good.
All right. We're going to write up. I'm Lara Hooper and I'm the Year 3, Year 4 teacher at Kahutara School.
How long have you been involved with the program here at Ruamahanga Farm?
Since the beginning of term 1. So, yeah.
Same group of children coming the whole time?
Yes, it is.
And how have they developed, do you think, as they've gone along?
Oh, look, just for them being able to get out into the environment, I've just seen them learn so much about our local history and things. And then when we go back and we put it into our writing or even in our art, I am seeing their descriptive language coming out, which for some of them as Year 3s, they were only sort of touching on at the very beginning of the year. And so now for them to grow, it's just amazing.
What are some of the qualities, lovely descriptive words for water? Sparkling, yep. Glistening. Joyful. Beautiful. Gleaming. Cold. Charming. That's a nice one. Okay. Charming. Flynn, one more. Shimmering. What are some of technical words we might bring in?
Think scientific.
Think more sciencey. Dirty. Flowing. Salty. Well done. Yes. Quick. Nice. Muddy. Yeah, lovely. Frozen.
Yucky.
Okay, I think, is it our...
Do you think that being so immediately surrounded by what they're talking about also helps the writing?
100%. I definitely do. And, I mean, that's why I think, the whole idea of, oh, gosh, we've got to focus on phonics and blah, 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 it's important. But if there's nothing to write about, then what are they going to write about? So I think there's something about what are the metaphors, what's the metaphorical landscape in which any of us are inhabiting is going to affect what are the stories we tell and how we are. So just being so involved in the river and the rest of the whenua. I love this quote, I think it's from David Abram, that stories are half made by humans and half made by the earth. And I think we have to enter into that kind of, create the conditions for that kind of storytelling to happen, or you could, where the earth is partly telling the story.
As a kaitiaki of our moana, I want the water to be shining like the sun.
As kaitiaki of our moana, I want the water to be clean, beautiful and sparkling. I also want it to be always under 10 degrees so fish can swim in it. Some of the fish will be species of kōkapu.
Kaitiaki of our moana, I wanted the water to be shimmery and beautiful, joyful, healthy, incredible and sparkly.
I look at some of those children who read out these stories today, and usually they're very quiet and they won't share all their writing and things, but for them to just develop this descriptive language the way that they have is amazing.
How hard is it for you as a teacher to get your class out to a place like this for learning?
It is quite difficult. Because usually, we are having to spend a lot of time in class making sure we are doing everything for them, like their reading, writing and maths. But the way I see it now is that my class have been doing all their reading, their writing and their maths and science out in this environment. And they don't know it, but it's sort of, for me, it's awesome. And I'm also growing as a teacher. I have just learnt so much from this, and I'm being able to pass that knowledge on to these tamariki today has been awesome.
As kaitiaki of our moana, I want the water to be free and keep on glistening. I hope it's not too dirty and I hope it's not too warm. I want the water to stay charming for all the fish so they can go on amazing journeys through the moana. I also want the slimy, shimmery kakahi and the slithery eels to roam free through the mythical waters.
As kakahi of our moana, I want the water to be clean, shimmering and healthy. The slimy eels and beautiful white bait. I hope the water will be safe, clean, healthy and filtered. What I love about the water is that it's so majestic and mythical. I hope the fish and baby fish grow up to be healthy and strong. When people come to the moana, I want everyone to be happy, calm and joyful.
As kaitiaki of our moana, I want the water to be free and keep on glistening. I hope you are happy about all we are doing. I like all the presents like your stones. I hope you have kaki here so the waters are all fresh.
Wow.
You're blowing me away today, Room 3. I'm tears.
Very impressed. Yeah.
Lara Hooper ending that story. Now, she's a teacher at Kahutara School in South Wairarapa, and she was listening to some of them tell their stories. I was also speaking to Jane Rediford of the Ruamahanga Farm Foundation and Maddie Glover of Mountains to Sea Wellington.
And Sally, what's going to happen to those stories?
Well, you'll be able to listen to a recording of the kids as they read them as you walk along the river on the community walkway that's being planned on part of the farm. Now, I've put some of the photos from the day in the bell tent on our website. Go to rnz.co.nz/countrylife.
And that's this week's Country Life. Thanks for joining us. You can find photos and more information about the stories in this episode in our show notes. We love getting your feedback and ideas for future stories. You can reach us, country@rnz.co.nz.
Now, we'd hate for you to miss an episode of Country Life. To get every episode on your phone, click follow on your app now. And if you enjoyed our show, give us a shout out on social media or tell a friend by clicking the share button in this app.
Out in the field today were Cosmo Kentish-Barnes, myself, Janina Schwanica,
and me, Sally Round. The show was produced and engineered by David Knowles and William Saunders. Catch you next time.
Ka kite.